By the way, we have the highest ranked Dynasty Fantasy Baseball podcast that starts with the letter A.
That's David said.
Welcome to Atlas Balked, a weekly chronicle concerning the mundane, weird, and maybe even sometimes dramatic happenings of a simple fantasy baseball league. This podcast captures the thoughts and musings of Greg, Joe, Jack, and Tim, 4 of the 10 owners in the league. This is episode 30, entitled Predictions That Are Surely Wrong.
Okay, welcome back to Atlas Balked, and now it is episode 30, and we're in the 2018 season. Jack Swagger, good to see you.
Episode. Who would have thought 30 episodes and into our second season? Good to see you guys.
No one, not one of us, thought we would make it to episode 10, let alone episode 30. That's great. Low key, it's wonderful to see you as well. How are you?
I'm riding high off the Jayhawks victory over Duke.
That's a pretty good basketball team there, Joe. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, let's not get carried away.
They're not
They've
bad.
got their weaknesses. They've outperformed what I thought they would do.
It's all on display now, Joe. Everybody in podcast land is going to understand your strategy now. Just know that it is going to be exposed. You will no longer be able to hide. 29 episodes was the limit.
Their own coach called them soft at the beginning of the year.
It worked.
Real soft. So to kick off our season, we had our draft last week. It was on Skype, and it was a clusterfuck. I just
Very
wanted
smooth.
oh my God, I wanted to run my head through a plate glass window. First of all, I don't think anyone in our league understands the use of the mute button. Second of all, one of the things that was interesting and annoying at the same time was listening to all the side conversations going on during the draft. And when we got into the rule changes and got to hear everybody's comments about why this rule change sucked or was stupid, was definitely a gut punch to those of us that spent days trying to figure this shit out.
Yeah, exactly.
Just no respect. It was horrible.
You seem to be getting a little frustrated about halfway through.
Well, I think at first it was the lack of the Breens being able to jump onto Skype, right? So we started a half an hour late. And then Dusty, all I could hear was click, 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 click.
He was playing the shit out of NBA 2K. He was kicking somebody's ass.
For sure. I hope he was winning.
Well, outside of the sound issues for me, I mean, it seemed like flowed pretty well. It seemed like, you know, everybody got their pick in one after the other. And I remember when we did it on just through the phone call, I had to ask everybody, how do you spell that? Because I couldn't understand what they were saying. And it just seems like for me, when I can see somebody's face when they're talking, it makes it easier.
It helps your spelling.
We did have the Ghost King at one point that he thought that there was a mistake with the draft order, of which Jack and I spent the following 75 minutes trying to work through it. And then we get an email I got an email from Greg saying, oh, no, that's right. I did trade that pick.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
Oh, it was horrible. I mean,
My bad. Go to bed.
Right.
Yeah, I haven't been around Greg enough to know when he's genuinely angry about something, but he seemed like he was pretty peeved about that when it happened.
I wanted to ask him, did he go into the draft when he made his first pick? Did he think he was picking next at that point, or was he aware by then?
I haven't talked about it.
Yeah.
All I heard was that he absolutely lacked the commitment to do the podcast that we originally planned, which I was okay with. I was actually quite exhausted after that, so I felt good about that. And then decided to go to Florida with his brother and spend time with his family. Like, again, so apparently he's still kind of cranky and didn't want to participate, and certainly doesn't give a shit about our fans as we start the 2018 season.
Harsh words, Tim. Harsh words.
It's a harsh reality, Joe.
He was afraid he couldn't get onto the internet here. Was that the problem?
I don't know. He's certainly blowing up Instagram with pictures from a hotel porch. So I don't know. Like, the last thing I would want to do is take pictures of the beach both in the day and night. Like, wouldn't you want to be on the beach, right? Go down to Cleveland's, have some drinks, talk to some Latin women. What are you doing up in your rental room there? I don't know.
Yes, especially him. Think how easy it would be to ghost those women.
Nice.
So enough about Greg. Let's talk about Greg. He took the Astros first as his pitching staff pick. I thought that was, no-brainer. I think Astros, Nationals, Indians, you could take any one of those number one.
It's definitely a top three, and I've heard, and seen arguments on each of them. I've always been a National League guy myself when I'm comparing, just because you get those pitcher strikeouts, generally a little lower ERA generally. Personally, I expected the Astros. No, I didn't make myself commit to the point that if I had the first pick, who I would have taken. I really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the same thing I said about actually the same guy taking the Cubs last year. What sort of World Series hangover is there going to be with them?
That's interesting. I forgot about that. He did take the Cubs last year, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
It didn't work out well.
No, I remember you saying that. And it did not. They really did struggle. So I took the Nationals number 2. For me, it was all about stability and predictability. I know that I'm going to get some weeks where they don't score as much as others, but that floor is pretty well established, and I need the 8 or 10 top 3 scores they're going to put up over the course of a 19-game season. Again, maybe some durability with Strasburg. They are getting a little long in the tooth pitching staff-wise. I went with the Nationals because I just thought they were the safest pick.
Don't forget they're playing in a division with the Marlins, the Braves. Still have quite a few holes in their swings. I mean, even the Phillies are a up and coming but young team. The Mets tend to strike out quite a bit as well. So competition.
So number 3, the Dreamers took the Indians, and I was really unhappy to see that.
Yeah, that was the safest pick in the draft. But like I said, you could justify any of them going 1. If I had the choice between 1, 2, and 3, I'm not sure I wouldn't have preferred to go 3, and at least I don't have to explain it at the end of the year.
So then you have LJ taking the Boston Red Sox. So that's a team that Joe and I will never take, and actually only reluctantly in desperate situations will even consider it, and then won't get them anyway because Michael Chavis is somehow the fucking offensive god of the next 15 years.
Solid pick. I think I had Boston at number 4 on my list, so the solid pick. Again, you could justify, you could talk about the Dodgers. I have the Cubs a little lower, but they're arguable. But I think the Sox are a good pick at 4.
So we got 4, the Red Sox, and then we have the champ, Mikey, picking the Cubs at 5. And it's interesting you say that. Now, did you have the Cubs lower than 5?
I did, personally.
Okay.
I had them way lower than that.
Oh, wow.
I had them 8.
The Dodgers go next at 6. Now, the Dodgers last year, when did you take the Dodgers last year, Jack?
Last year, they went 7th.
They went 7th. Okay, so, again, the Dodgers fall to 6. Interesting take for Chris and St. Locash, because I think when we get into the divisions we talk about a little later, this Dodgers staff, if they even come close to what they did last year, the Dodgers staff actually, I think, could really wreak some havoc in that division.
I could see him going 5th. I had them fifth, sixth. I actually had the Yankees a notch ahead of them. So obviously, for the guy that had them last year, they performed as a top 2 or 3 staff, if not one, for most of the year. Then yes, obviously, I see him taking a little step back. Again, still a solid pick at that point. They could easily make that jump a little bit. They're not. They didn't have many changes.
They did not. Correct.
It could end up being the best pick of the draft. Again.
I was actually surprised that they fell that far based on what they did last year. You would have thought that everybody had been paying attention and somebody would have picked them in the top 3 or 4.
The other staff that was taken was Boston, and if you remember last year, that it finished the Cleveland, Dodgers, Boston, I believe. So Boston was also one that they were right there with LA at the end.
Yeah, and then we get to pick 7 and 8, and these were both held by Reardon Metal. This was, in my opinion, the move I'll probably remember a couple years from now, which is where Reardon Metal took both Gotham City teams. He took the Yankees 7 and the Mets 8, and I thought that was interesting that you said the Yankees first. I think, did you want us to know that you had the Yankees ranked higher and the Mets were your flyer?
I was just in so much pain from having to take 2 New York teams that never entered into it. I took them in the order that I had them ranked. But I don't care if anybody knows it.
I think you think about everything, Joe. And I think this whole I don't think about it stuff just doesn't work.
Or do I just have you so snowed and I really am that ignorant?
I went back and I looked over the last 5 years, and the one consistent staff in the top 5, Yankees. Every year, and it's like muscle memory. We would make fun of Pops for picking the Yankees every fucking year. Then I started to take a look, and I'm like, Pops knows what's going on here. I mean, we always called it a homer pick, but in reality, the Yankees were good. I mean, they just strike out a ton of people. They buy the pitchers they need. They're bringing up young arms. This staff, in my opinion, has a chance to be the number 1 staff. Joe, I think this could be a season-defining moment for you.
I certainly hope so. I don't have the greatest record of picking pitching staffs, although I seem to do better when I have a lower pick. Maybe I should do what Pops does and just trade it away every year.
I'll take it.
We call it the old New York, New York. I like the Yankees.
So good move, Joe. And then we had Scott, Emission Commission, picking at number 9, right where he ended up last year. He had an opportunity to make some trades there in typical Scotty fashion. He did not. He held pat. And actually, in this case, I think it paid off. The D-backs. And this is the one staff that I thought, man, maybe this staff goes in the top 5. Maybe I should. I'll let you know. It was Nationals or D-backs for me, given what they did last year, bringing in the Humidor into Arizona, the fact that they still have Greinke. I think Ray is solid. This pick was super impressive for me because, I think he got a top 5 pick at 9.
I agree. They could end up being the steal of the draft, being that late. They were solid last year. I don't even think they got picked last year. I think they got picked up at some point last year. And ended up being in the top 5 at the end, if I remember, damn close to it.
Yep.
So far out of the first round, that the D-backs, the Yankees, I think are 2 huge ones. And then, like I said, the Dodgers have that chance of jumping up.
And then we had, to round out the top 10, the Philadelphia Experiment 2 takes the Philadelphia Phillies pitching staff. And this one, I was like, holy shit. I didn't see this coming from a mile away.
I would assume the surprise of the first round. In all honesty, I actually sat down. It's not a homer pick. I mean, it is ultimately, but it's justifiable statistically. I did sit down and broke down individual pitchers, bullpens, strikeouts to walks is a big factor of what I do. The Philadelphia Phillies have more strikeouts to walks in their bullpen.
Oh,
I think they have a huge upside, probably a year too early. I decided not to go with smart and safe this year. I don't know if you've noticed my lineup. And I went with my heart at that point, took the Phillies.
Round 2, we had the Brewers taken 11th in Pop's first pick. We had the Rockies taken, number 12, which, I thought at first, what the fuck is Greg doing? And then I was like, hey, wait a minute. They're actually not that bad. The Dreamers took the San Francisco Giants, and Bumgarner hurt his pinky, and he's out for 6 to 8 weeks. So, fuck the Giants. I hate them. LJ passed. I took the Cardinals, another safe pick. If there was one regret, I should have taken the Blue Jays, who I think actually has a good staff, but for whatever reason, In my mind, I think they always fall apart midseason. And then at 18, Jack took the Angels, which essentially it wasn't 18, it was actually 15. Scotty took the Blue Jays, so he ended up with the D-backs and the Blue Jays, which is actually, in my opinion, a ballsier move given where he was picking. And then Mikey took the Twins, which I thought was a good, solid backup if the Cubs don't work out. So, guys, why don't we go ahead and refill our drinks, come back in a few minutes, and let's talk about the player picks, and then we can get into the season preview.
Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. I wanna fly like an eagle to the sea. Fly like an eagle, let my spirit carry me. I want to fly like an eagle till I'm free. I go through the revolution. Feed the babies who don't have enough to eat. Shoe the children with no shoes on their feet. House the people living in the street. Oh, there's a solution. I want to fly like an eagle to the sea.
Welcome back, Bachers. So let's move over from the pitching staffs. Let's go over to the player picks, which pretty much are prospect picks at this point. We had the number one pick. That's the Ghost King, Mr. Blonde's Heroes is the name of his team. He picked Keston Hiura, second baseman out of Milwaukee. And Major League Baseball has him ranked as a second best second base prospect, right behind Scott Kingery of the Philadelphia Phillies. So a pretty strong pick to go number one overall in our player pick draft. I don't know if either of you know much about him, but real projectable, looks to be a Major League regular at worst.
I agree. He's a solid pick. A little bit of a surprise, but a solid pick.
I wouldn't have picked him first, but he was definitely on my board.
So who was it that you thought would go first?
I don't know if it, again, because I was detached from the majority of the fucking draft, I don't know if it came through or not, but, there was some confusion, obviously. And at one point, Greg thought that he had that second pick, so he thought he was picking back-to-back first
Right.
and second overall. Ends up that was not the case. He was incorrect, but he definitely thought that was the case. And I'm not sure how deep he thought. I don't know if he thought that all the way up to the draft or not. My theory, and again, I had a discussion with this with Mike afterwards. After the draft, I guess Greg still thought at that point that pick was his, correct?
He did. I mean, he came into this draft thinking that he had the number 2 pick, which was owned by Pops. Now, we had the draft order up on the site for several weeks. I had sent emails out. For whatever reason, Greg missed that. This is one of the most interesting things about doing it on Skype because, Joe, I think even you picked up on something was wrong when I went to Pops for the number 2 pick. And the way Greg reacted, my thinking was the same thing, is that he thought he had the first 2 picks. And so it didn't really matter who he picked first.
So, right. So based on that, I think Greg had another guy in mind. I think Greg, if Greg knew that he only had one pick there, I think he would have made a different pick.
Correct.
So that player was Matt Olson that I'm speaking of.
Right.
That's the guy I thought would go 1 overall. I picked 8th. Matt Olson not only didn't go first or second, he slid to 8th. I was fucking shocked, honestly, that he was still there. That guy's got some holes in his swing.
Yes.
27.5% strikeout rate, but he's fucking 23-year-old Adam Dunn.
Right.
And I'll take a fucking chance on that guy, especially picking 8th. I thought he was going to go first, right? Now, guys, at this point, I just thought I got a steal. I knew at one point Greg thought he had those 2 picks, but again, as you remember, I wasn't on for the draft, so I didn't see anything happen, or it wasn't until after the draft that I found out that there was still some confusion.
You thought there was confusion because I actually said I may have fucked up, and
right.
Greg thinks he had the number 2 pick, and then you and I went into a scramble. We went through the website, and it wasn't till 75 minutes later that Greg said, Oh no. That's my bad. I did trade that.
It took me a minute, but I put all the pieces together, and I thought Greg wanted fucking Matt Olson. He thought he had the first 2 picks. Probably mentioned that the first guy just for a little more hurrah at first, but it didn't matter because he was picking Olson next, and then it wasn't his pick, and he was like, "What the fuck? I didn't get Matt Olson." Like at that point, I was like, "I bet that's what he was trying to do, and that's why he's upset. He's pissed off." Sure enough, 2 days later, I get a fucking offer from Greg for Matt Olson, and I got to be honest, when I did first see it, I'm gonna get this motherfucker. I was only because I was right. Like I kind of put it together in my head, and then it happened. I'm like, ooh. It ends up that we did make a deal. He got Olson, and I gave him Brandon Rogers, very highly touted middle infield prospect.
Yeah.
And I did give him my staff pick next year, which at this point looks like it's going to be pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
I did get him to give me not only Scott Kingery back in the deal, which I was pretty fucking excited about. I got Logan Morrison back in the place of Olson. He's on my bench. I was asking for a younger. I needed a catcher or a third baseman. I wanted Senzel. I wanted Ruiz, the catcher, and we couldn't get it done. And as an afterthought, literally in parentheses, I put in or Sano, and that's what got it done. I ended up getting Sano out of the deal. So I'm very fucking excited about it. I basically had a guy slide down to me to number 8 and was able to turn him into a 24-year-old stud third baseman. I appreciate the fact that you fucked up, or whoever he fucked up, or whoever.
It wasn't
fucked
me.
Up.
No, I was on top of it, man. Don't give me this. I think where I fucked up was letting you trade in this goddamn lead, for Christ's sake. But you turn that into Miguel Sano and Scott Kingery, you motherfucker. Like God damn it. Your trades have just infuriated me this year, and I was part of them.
Yeah, I do feel like I'm, at least internally took advantage a little bit of the situation, but it worked out in my favor. If Olsen had gone a pick earlier or a pick later, I wouldn't have the opportunity.
Yeah,
and it's funny how many times have we done a draft and Greg chimes in with, "Oh, I've got that pick," and he's always right.
Mm-hmm.
And this one time he wasn't, and he still turns around and made that part of the trade with you, is that he's giving up a pick to you or getting a pick from you.
Well, he's a guy who knows what he wants.
Yeah, make sure and take a screenshot so you don't have to go looking for it next time.
He's the one that's going to have to prove.
Yeah.
Exactly. So all of that before we get to number 2, where Pops takes Austin Hayes, a Baltimore Orioles outfielder.
He was the other guy.
He was the other guy.
I remember
right?
you illegally picked him up last year, didn't you, Tim?
I tried.
Yeah.
I tried. But people were paying attention.
And who was it that called you out?
It was probably Chris.
That's probably it.
Okay.
Yeah. Chris kind of has a thing for me. I don't know what it is, but he basically he wants to be. He knows I don't cheat, but he definitely doesn't want to give me an edge.
Weird.
Yeah, I think I tried to pick him up after the deadline. No, good on Chris. Chris was right. So then the Dreamers picked up D. Gordon, who is now in Seattle, and this kind of, if there's any indication about their understanding where they're at, they know they need to make their run this year. That's clearly a professional pick. Scooter Gannett goes to the Funkin' Punks, second baseman out of Cincinnati, highly rated. I think that was a fine pick. And then I picked Austin Barnes, who's the catcher for the Dodgers, one of my weakest positions. I liked what he did last year in the playoffs, and this is kind of a weird thing. He's a catcher and a second baseman. So I actually was able to bolster my middle infield. And St. Locash picks up Nolan Gorman, who's a younger third baseman. Chris is able to make those picks every so often, and that could be good. Taylor Trammell goes to Reardon Meadow. I thought that was a great pick. Yep, Cincinnati outfielders are usually pretty good, safe picks. That's a tiny little ballpark, and he's got some power. Then the infamous 8th pick in the 2018 draft, Philadelphia Experience gets Matt the Dun Olson, Donkey Olson. Omission Commission picks up Nick Prado, first baseman from Kansas City. I will never take a player from Kansas City ever again. I just think that park just kills players. And then Lethal Injection, Mikey picks up Jorge Soler, Kansas City outfielder. It's interesting, like he's been on teams and off teams, so that was an interesting pick. So Mikey might know something.
Hayes was the safest pick. I think that was a smart pick. Guy he's young. He looks really fucking good. Barnes and D. Gordon made the most sense for those two teams, for their needs. I thought Gordon was a good pick. He was one of the better players statistically that was available still. And yeah, the most interesting pick was Soler. That guy, fucking huge hole, huge hole
Yeah.
over the years. But when he does make contact, and if I'm not mistaken, he's either leading or close to leading the spring and homers. So we'll see. Mikey has a way of picking those guys up, and again, the younger they come up, that we drop them, we dismiss them. Will Myers factors.
Okay, so then we go into round 2. Bad Street picks up Carlos Gomez. I don't know why. Do you guys know why?
I don't know why.
Okay. Glad it's not just me. 12th and 13th picks went to Greg. He picked up Wander Javier and Julio Rodriguez, the shortstop from Minnesota, and the outfielder from Seattle. Both young, both projectable. We'll see. Funkin' Punks picked up Jesse Winker, the outfielder for the Reds. I think Jesse Winker was rostered last year at some point, and then was dropped. Yeah, so that's an interesting thing for the Punks. Punks, by the way, are making a strong bid for the third best minor league system if you actually go and take a look. We'll get the pseudo scout to kind of weigh in on that, but the Punks, their prospect system looks pretty damn good right now. Pops picks again. He picked up Randall Grichuk. I actually still thought he was with St. Louis. I'm an idiot. He's with Toronto, and actually probably a pretty damn good pick. I think a lot of those balls are going to go out up there in the dome, and you could have a good little outfielder there. St. Locash was out. Reed Meadow went to Archimedes Gamboa. In my opinion, the best fucking name in the draft. It was awesome. Shortstop for Philadelphia. I think at that point, this was when your internet had gone out and you were doing the draft by the phone, Jack. So you didn't know that Archimedes had actually been picked. Is that right?
Yeah, I think Mike was. Yeah,
Mike was.
He was just making fun of the name, I think. Yeah.
Michael Taylor went to the Philadelphia Experiment, and this was an interesting thing because this is the player that Greg couldn't remember in our previous podcast. I don't know. Jack plays the game at so many levels. I didn't know if you'd picked him up just to poke him in the eye with that one.
No, I have scrapped my team and gone with the kids this year. So Michael Taylor is actually good enough to potentially start for my team this year. So it was a good pickup.
And then we had Omission Commission picked up Evan White, another first baseman. He's loading up, trying to corner one of the hot corner positions, first baseman for Seattle. And then Lethal Injection said he was out. In the third round, Pops takes Teoscar Hernandez, an outfielder for the Blue Jays. In my opinion, another good pick for Pops. I liked it. Greg was out. The Dreamers are out. The Punks take Billy Hamilton, who always seems to be on someone's team at the start of the season and always seems to not be on someone's team at the end of the season. 47 Ronin, I took Jaime Candelario, third baseman for Detroit. St. Locash passed. Reed Meadow picked up Michael Smell, although during this podcast, Reed Meadow actually dropped Michael Smell, so maybe he'll come back. He's a first baseman, college player, plays down in Florida. Philadelphia Experiment, Orlando Arcia, the shortstop from Milwaukee. Again, another guy that's been rostered and then been dropped, so that's interesting. And then Omission Commission, Sean Murphy, the catcher out of Oakland, the great Irish hope on the round 4. Cole Calhoun, outfielder for Los Angeles. Again, I couldn't put it together. I don't know what he's thinking or not thinking, but okay. And then I picked next with Yandy Diaz, the third baseman from Cleveland. These guys from Cuba, who knows? It's hit or miss, but I just like the guy's biceps and think that, maybe. Maybe. Philadelphia Experiment picked up Chris Iannetta with the knowledge he will some point trade him to me throughout the season. I just know it, motherfucker. Omission Commission picked up Luis Urias, the shortstop from San Diego. Bad Street then took Neil Walker from the New York Yankees, and I actually think that's not a bad pick. Like, I think he actually could do okay. But what's crazy is that I took Rowdy Tellez, the first baseman for Toronto, and then Pops takes Jason Kipnis. Now, I heard 3 people say, I didn't know Jason Kipnis was available. I was one of those 3 people because he's been having a crazy spring, and I was like, shit.
I did know he was available. I dropped him. I actually rostered Kipnis last year, and me being the sweetheart that I am, always tend to start getting on in January and cleaning up my roster before anyone else, like a fucking idiot. And at the time, Kipnis was going to go to the outfield. And he fucking spelled Brantley, and they were fucking moving Ramirez over, and so on and so forth. And I was like, well, fuck this guy. And at the time, I wasn't scrapping my team, so Jason Kipnis was like my fucking fourth best middle infielder. But then I scrapped my team. Ends up Kipnis would probably start for me this year.
Then I took Albert Almora, outfielder for the Cubs. I've since dropped him in the ensuing 7 days, so what the fuck. And then I picked up Akil Badu, second best name in my opinion. Archimedes was definitely number one, but Akil Badu, outfielder for Minnesota. And then I picked up Jordan Alvarez. This was a 1 day rebuild of a minor league system, by the way.
Right.
Yes, I had nine spots that I had to fill. Jordan Alvarez, the outfielder for Houston. Check him out. The fact that I was able to get this guy in this draft is going to surprise people in a year, probably next year. My guess is top 15 next year.
Oh.
Super awesome. And then I picked up Matt Chapman, a third baseman for Oakland, in the 9th round, and we were done.
Yep. I hope LJ was paying attention. At least 3 of those guys that you picked are going to end up on his team at some point.
I'm not.
Right?
No, I'm not trading with LJ anymore. I'm not trading with Jack anymore. I'm not trading with fucking Scotty anymore. So if you're named Chris or Joe, then fuck yeah, let's talk. But
Well,
not
Price
you.
just went up.
Chris isn't trading with you anymore.
Right.
So.
Eventually he will. Eventually he'll realize his brother isn't as kind as he thinks when he sees Chavis fucking burn out and Pavin Smith do nothing. The quad A player that he is.
Oh,
It just takes time.
Keep trying. Where's the guy? Where's the guy you were offering?
On the DL,
I would love
probably.
to go back and see everybody's list of prospects because now that so many of these good players have been taken over the last few years, it would be interesting to see who values what and how. You were talking about the guy you picked going at 8th instead of 1 or 2 or 3, and I didn't even have him on my list because he's not the type of player that I would typically draft. I don't like those guys that don't have some sort of hitting tool.
Right.
And I know you guys do value that.
Well, that's the difference between me and you is I don't value it either.
Right.
But I know that other people do. So,
I was just thinking, taking Trammell for me was he's actually kind of a high risk player for me. Not typically the type of player that I would take. So it's the scarcity of talent has somewhat changed the way I'm looking at some of this.
Yeah, you know what I'm interested in is going to be the secondary market in prospects that were rostered and dropped, or prospects that are rostered and get moldy in the owner's eye.
Mm-hmm.
And can the deal be made before that prospect starts rising? It's as if the prospect market has matured in our league to a point that it's getting I don't want to say complex, but it's certainly getting trickier to kind of move through it and maneuver through it, and there's a lot of people doing their homework in this league. And it's actually one of the reasons I zagged when everyone else was zigging, because to me it's so hard to find value in the prospect areas right now, unless your name's Jack and you can just rip people off left and right. But other than that,
I traded the top 2 players of last year's production. Number 1 and number 2 were on my team when the season started. So I may have robbed people, but I robbed them by giving them very good during this time that I've been robbing people. I've done it by trading Paul Goldschmidt, Charlie Blackmon, and some other decent guys. Matter of fact,
let's just talk about what.
Hey, the champion, the fucking current champion, Mr. Breen, you give him fucking respect, is starting literally in his lineup right now. Go to his lineup. 4 players that I traded him this offseason. Granted, his team wasn't good last year. He just won the championship. But
so Charlie Blackmon, I see Charlie Blackmon, Chris Davis, Eddie Rosario.
Rosario was somebody that I gave him. Cano. was somebody I gave him. He's got Cabrera at DH, I think, at the moment, and then Black.
Oh my God.
4 guys, 4.
And hey, man, I entered into it. I said, look, I'm at the crossroads. I know I'm talking to the devil. I made my deal. I get that. I understand that. I actually felt good about that till I learned about the goddamn humidor. Had I been paying attention, I should have thought about that. I really should have. Let's face it, Jack. There were some other trades out there that
just stop. Seriously.
That really, if we
the
take
one
a look
you keep going back to, the one, and there were only 3 guys in the deal, and one of them is on your fucking team. So again, and he's cursed. So now you have 2 cursed players, Brantley and fucking Harper.
Victor Robles, yes. The guy that's sitting right there next to Eloy Jimenez and Acuna. You got him for a fucking bag of peanuts. God damn it.
We'll see.
And an oft-injured outfielder. So, folks, that's your tease. We'll come back, listen to some music, get some drinks. We'll be back in about a minute and talk about preview for next year. Welcome back, Bachers. Let's take a look at our predictions for this coming year. So just to give you a quick rundown, so we have the 2 loser divisions. We have the McGuire division, that is 47 Ronin, Bad Street, and the Dreamers. In the Bonds division, we have Funkin' Punks, Mr. Blonde's Heroes, and the St. Locash Stinkfist. And then in the senior division, the Big Boy division, the Griffey division, we have Lethal Injection, Reardon Metal, Omission Commission, and the Philadelphia Experiment 2. For those of you that are joining this podcast new, the Griffey division represents the 4 playoff teams from the previous year. This is the toughest division of them all. And Jack Swagger has done some work. He put pencil to paper and has his predictions. So, Jack, I'm going to hand the microphone over to you and let you kind of take us through what you think is going to happen this year. Then, obviously, Joe and I can kind of share what we think is going to happen as well.
I thought it was important that we do this episode since we were so fucking good at it last year. Did we predict Joe was the only
right
team that anyone fucking predicted that made it.
Correct.
So let's give it a shot. So honestly, I thought, just from remembering last year, I thought I had a pretty good grasp on what I expect to happen. And it didn't change dramatically when I started digging into it, but it did change a little bit. Everything tightened up a little bit more than it was in my head.
Yeah.
And let's see if you guys agree. Fuck it. Let's start down here with the losers in the McGuire division. You got this was an interesting one. 2 of the better teams in the league this year are in one loser division. That's 47 Ronin and the Dreamers. Ronin, obviously Tim's team. Those of you who followed us last year realized the unfavorable randomness that Tim experienced. So he took that team that was projected number 1 last year, added Paul Goldschmidt and Altuve and fucking Trout. I don't know, fucking monster team. So Tim, I do have Tim winning that division.
I'm sorry, Jack. I didn't quite hear what you said. What was that again?
I do have Tim winning that division.
Everybody in the league, take notice.
I did have Tim winning the league last year.
That could be the kiss of death.
And I do still have Mike's dad coming in third in that division. Although Mike's dad has improved this year, in my opinion, and is no longer the worst team in the league. I believe he may be better than me and Greg this year. The interesting thing about this division, in my opinion, was the Dreamers. They are a little better than I thought they were.
Yeah.
When you really get to sit down and
Yep.
dig into it.
Yep.
You know, at catcher, Tim, they got you beat.
Big time.
They got Sanchez. I mean,
Yep.
they probably have the best catcher, and again, statistically projected, you have the worst. So you're starting out of a hole.
Right.
You got Goldschmidt. They got Freeman.
Yep.
I expect you to have a little regression, and Freeman was one of my big three last year. If you remember, the three guys I was on were Freeman, Jose Ramirez, and Realmuto were my three guy. And Freeman did perform well. I expect him to do a little better. I still think Goldschmidt's better, but not by much.
I will say that if Goldschmidt is able to play, in other words, if he's healthy, I will play him every game this year. I don't know the Dreamers would do the same.
So if ever there is a year they should, this is it. No guarantees, but I think they have a real good shot.
So CBS Sports actually has Freddie Freeman with an OPS over 1,000. Do you really think Freddie Freeman on that team is going to be that fucking good? I mean, they've got him at 38 home runs, 306 batting average, an on-base percentage of 400, and a slugging percentage of 606. That's a monster season.
I do. I think the Braves are a little better this year as a team, and God forbid they pull Acuna up and start filling in around him. I don't think we've seen the best of Freeman yet. I think he continues to improve. You know, he got hurt last year, and before that, I mean, he was one of the top fucking guys in the league for a little bit there. So yeah, I'm a believer. I mean, I am. You know, like I said, I was high on him last year. So
okay.
Middle infield, we got you got Altuve and Turner. I mean, it can't get fucking better.
Dominant. Like, come on, man, bring it on.
He does have Corey Seager.
He does.
You know, again,
all right,
just a notch below.
Okay.
And then one of his weak spots. So he's got Story. He did pick up, as we mentioned, D. Gordon in the draft. Again, definitely a drop down assumed from Turner, but he did fill in a little bit. Yeah, when those weeks where Turner or Story starts to fall off, he'll be able to fill in.
Yep.
So again, middle infield definitely goes to you. Third base, he's got Donaldson, solid guy, but you got Arenado. So again, he's close. But no cigar, but close. Outfield, I mean, again, at the moment, it looks odd because you got Dickerson in there. Eventually, Myers will be your outfielder, and you'll have Harper, Trout, and Myers.
Yep.
I think Carnacion, I assume, sliding up. So
correct.
Again, tough to beat that threesome, but he does have George Springer. He does have J.D. Martinez. I think Puig and Story are the only two weak spots, if you will, and both of those guys are studs when they're hot. He does, again, not as much as far as bench goes for filling those spots, but he does have guys that he could slide in there. So, and then he's got Yelich.
He does have Yelich, which I really like in Milwaukee a lot.
Me too.
A lot.
Me too.
But, you know, can anyone win a championship when Yasiel Puig is a guy you're counting on?
Yeah.
I just don't think so. J.D. Martinez in Boston, it's not Arizona without the humidor, man. Like, it's different. It's just different there. Trevor Story, hey, man, like, maybe he'll get some hot streaks, and I understand this is a head-to-head, but I think Trevor Story is not as good as, you know, and they've got him projected to hit 244. I think that's about right. That means you're going to get some good weeks. You're going to get some bad weeks. And frankly, if you look at his bench, other than D. Gordon, which I actually thought was a great pickup, Carlos Santana does provide you some depth. I think you switch out Puig and Santana, and you kind of get some consistency there. And then the catcher position, I mean, Gary Sanchez is going to win.
Yeah. He's got Santana at outfield. That must be a carryover. He does not qualify at outfield, so he can't. He can move Yelich up
okay.
and put
Yep.
Santana there.
At
So
DH. Yep.
that might be the safe, smart move for
Right.
him, honestly.
Right. And this is a head-to-head league, right? So he just has to beat the team that he's going against. But when you look at Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, Jose Altuve, Nolan Arenado, Trey Turner, Paul Goldschmidt, I mean, this team is intended to intimidate from the get-go, right? It is, if I lose 2 starters, it doesn't matter because I still have the other 5 starters are fucking great.
Yeah, I mean, you're the Goldschmidt, Altuve, Arenado, Turner, Trout, all the top at their.
So here's where I think the edge. So I talk a lot about what I've paid to get the top players in every position, and the actual average age of my team is much lower if you take the starters and the bench than people might know or understand. It's a pretty young team, which means that I should, from an injury perspective, have the benefit of youth there. But my reserves, I'm a big believer in Candelario. He's a switch hitting third baseman for Detroit. A lot of people haven't talked about him. CBS has him projected to hit 272, 17 dingers. I think he's going to hit easily 22 dingers. This is a guy who gives me good depth at third base. I've got at shortstop, Xander is sitting on my bench. They've got him projected for 100 points. And this is a down year, 276, 16 home runs. I think Xander's going to run a lot more this year. I think he's valuable. I have Addison Russell to back him up. And then Brantley, oft injured. However, if he's available, he's there. I like Manuel Margot. That's probably my weakest. He's the San Diego outfielder. And then, Edwin Encarnacion will actually be in for Corey Dickerson. Corey Dickerson will be on my bench. So for me, it's a marathon, and you're going to have to endure the injuries. And I look at my bench, and I look at their bench, and I think I have the winning bench. Now, talk to me in 5 weeks, right? I still have the Harper curse. I still have the hex from Chris. I may be singing a different tune. But at this point, I think I win the division, and I don't think they have the nuts to make the trades they need to make when they have the injuries to keep up with me. That's my approach.
2 pretty fucking strong lineups coming into to 2018. Sorry, senior.
Last year was a tough year. Last year was a tough year for me.
Yeah, I think this year's going to make up for it for you. I don't see there's any way that you lose this division.
I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know. But
But then I picked Greg to win last year, so what the hell do I know?
Well, you can't predict bad management decisions. Remember Greg flip-flop. Greg was in, he was out. I don't know if like week 6 Greg was out and then he was in and then he was out. So just like his attendance on this podcast, he's just in, he's out.
So do you guys want to share your opinions of that division, or you want to just move on and then do our playoff?
My opinion is I dunk on fucking the Dreamers, and they make some stupid. I will not make the stupid decision that will give them the toehold. They will make the stupid decision.
There you go. You heard it here, folks. All right, moving on to the Bonds division. This is an interesting one. Again, just the way it plays out, the way we do our divisions are based on last year's record, and partially because of some of the craziness and weird luck and such. But this division, in my opinion, the weakest. You got LJ, who usually is right just in or just out of the playoffs. He tends to finish right in the middle of the pack every year. Chris has been right there as well. Matter of fact, he almost won his division over the champion, Mikey, last year, if you remember, down to the final week.
Yep.
And then Greg. A little tighter than I expected when I first considered this. And when I say that, I didn't think Greg had a chance in hell, and I still have him finishing third. So we can get into it here. I assumed it would be a distant third, and it may still be.
I think he wants it to be.
Yeah, he hung on to the first staff pick. I thought that was interesting. He definitely gave the impression that he had no interest in this year, that he was working towards the future. In my opinion, having that pick There's a lot more value. I think there's a lot more value in trading it and giving someone the opportunity to take that staff and just knowing that they have the choice than it is to choose the staff and trade it. Now, again, I could be wrong. The Astros tear it up the first few weeks. He could have a lot of value there, or he could have changed his mind. He has picked up some backups, current players since that draft. So maybe he's switching gears a little bit. It seems silly. He's not a good team, but in that division, who the fuck knows? He picked up LaCroix. That guy, a few years ago was good. Josh Bell's interesting dude. He wasn't supposed to be a power hitter. He's supposed to have a high average, so he came in and hit 255 and almost 30 home runs. So, who the fuck is Josh Bell? He picked up Odor. I like Odor. It's he's a solid player. The rest of the guys I could give or take. Olsen, we heard he's got now a DH. Nick Williams, a kid I like, Philly. Again, I'm not sure that he should be a starter in our league, but so like I said, with the staff, you get a couple of things happen. All of a sudden, Chris Davis finds his stroke of a couple years ago. David Dahl does what we've all been fucking waiting for him to do, which he has done this spring. You never know.
Yeah. What was that, Joe?
I said I quit waiting. That's why he's on somebody else's team.
Correct.
And he does have a lot of young, good kids. I don't see any of them really making too much of a statement right away. But so again, third, but not as distant as I may have thought. The next two were tough. This was the toughest. This was the toughest one for me to call, honestly, and still it's down to the wire.
It was easy for me. This is Chris's division. Absolutely. Look at his team. So if we go, Jorge Alfara is going to outperform what the expectations are. This is a Phillies team on the rise. This guy's been hitting at every level. He is going to rock it. Eric Hosmer in San Diego, no pressure. He played in a shit park in Kansas City. I think he's
playing in a shit park in San Diego.
He's playing in a park that they brought the fences in, and I think he's done that. Jose Ramirez, one of the least respected players in Major League Baseball, in fantasy baseball, in dynasty fantasy baseball. This guy is a fucking superstar, and I see that the trends have him 99% starting. He's getting the respect. Elvis Andrus, here's the post-hype prospect right here. This guy has been climbing year after year after year. Yoan Moncada becomes who we thought he was going to be. This guy's going to be a stud. Then you got Byron Buxton. I do believe Gregory Polanco takes a step forward this year. He's got Jake Lamb in Arizona, who I think is going to be great. He's got Joey Gallo, low average but high homers. I think Chris has a chance to win it all this year with the Dodgers, and he definitely takes this division. He is going to make a move before LJ will make a move. I really do believe that. And I think Chris walks away with one of the top seeds in the league going into the playoffs.
Good. Wow. I don't agree with
Plus, I think if he does well, it gets rid of my hex, and I could fucking benefit from that.
I do have Chris winning the division, but it was, I think, tighter. Chris, the reason being is Chris doesn't have a Joey Votto. He's got a lot of, Jose Ramirez is becoming that player in his position.
He does have a Jake Bowers. Oh, well, maybe not.
Chris definitely has more upside, no doubt about it. Matter of fact, I don't think anybody in LJ's lineup is going to fucking surprise you. They're solid, but they're not going to surprise you. You know what you're getting with Kyle Seager. You know what you're getting with even Francisco Lindor and Joey Votto and Perez, which are all studs, but you know what you're getting. Chris, definitely, I like his outfield better. I think there's a lot more potential, a lot higher ceilings on his outfield, and there's definitely guys.
How you doing, guys? There you go.
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Here.
Hey.
What's happening?
Oh, just hanging out. About to go get dinner with my girlfriend, and
Nice.
then stay up all night because it's spring break, baby. Spring break.
Sorry to interrupt that analysis. That fucking
right.
with the spring break to be 18. Okay.
So Chris has the thing. LJ has the safer team.
Right.
Chris definitely has the higher ceiling.
Yes.
But if Chris doesn't get Moncada to perform, to expectations, if Hosmer doesn't translate into the NL, if Alfaro isn't quite ready, and Grandal's definitely getting less at bats this year, if Bruce takes a step down, so I can see a scenario. I'm not as confident. I do have Chris winning, but I was not as confident. Again, he has the Dodgers. LJ has the Red Sox. So again, it's funny. Each of the staffs we compared,
Right.
which kind of went back to back, seemed to be in each of the divisions. So it's another kind of funny situation from the draft. But I do have Chris winning it, but I just think it's going to be another tight division.
It's interesting that they both have one staff. They didn't choose to have a backup staff. And can you see a situation where Greg pits them against each other to get the Astros staff if they're performing well?
Possible. I don't think the Astros will be so much better than either of the other two. That these two guys don't trade. That's the other thing. Neither of them fucking trade. So what you see is what you get. Tim, you might be right. One might move before the other, but it's both going to be later than everybody else. So, it's going to be interesting.
I think the reality is that LJ moves if you call him and want to make a trade with him. But whereas Chris, I think now what's interesting is you look at, and Joe, it's interesting that you picked up on the fact that they both took one staff, because if you look, their lineups are both legal, and their benches are they both took that extra spot on their bench and they put someone on there they could use. So these two guys are paying attention. There's not, there's some strategy going on there that I don't think isn't so obvious to a lot of folks. But this is a cool division. I really do think this is the year Chris gets off the snide. I think he had some bad luck last year. I think Mikey got hot at the right time. And frankly, Mikey played it right. Mikey played it, in my opinion, right. He earned the championship. But Chris was so fucking close. He was so close last year. And his team has just gotten better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Chris wins the division. I don't think it's going to be terribly close. I just, some of the players that LJ has, I just don't care for. But
he's got. Chris has Grandal on the bench. He's got Dansby Swanson, who could. Kyle Schwarber. If you look at all the sites, Kyle Schwarber is being touted as like one of the sleeper picks of the annual drafts, right? That he's kind of adjusted his swing. He's going to hit for more contact. He's got fucking Ryan Zimmerman. Like, his team is stacked. It really, and then he's got Michael Conforto. I mean, I know he's injured right now, but when Michael Conforto is playing, Michael Conforto is good.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, and Starling Marte, like, I know he was juicing last year, and but he's still a good player. Chris's team is I just like the way it's constructed, and he's got a good minor league system. If he needs to move a couple of pieces in the minor league system to make a trade happen, I think he could do that. I think he's got that type of quality. Like, this is a team that's set up, in my opinion, to get into the tournament. And once you get in the tournament, we know this, right? Yeah. Crazy things happen, except for fucking, Pavin Smith and Michael Chavis. Those guys fucking suck. But everyone else, not so much. So let's talk. So now we're doing. This was good. We talked about the losers. Now let's talk about the men in the league.
The Griffey division. Again, this is going to be myself, Joe, Scotty, and of course the champ, Mike.
Yep.
So as we've talked about quite a bit, I am in a rebuild. So I am projecting myself fourth out of the four, having no fucking good players and being in a division with all playoff teams. That said, I'm pretty excited, man. I like the kids, obviously, that I got. I don't hate the lineup. I don't hate the starters that I have either. I don't expect them to win. more games than they lose
Mm-hmm.
at this point. But hopefully it's not too long before I'm switching guys out. A lot of young guys coming up. But at this point, like I said, I don't, I got Posey, a solid catcher. Outside of that, I'm not in the top 10 in many. Marcelo Ozuna,
Mm-hmm.
the only other real, definitely mentionable guy on my team at this point. Maybe Sano after the deal, but so young, could disturb some folks along the way, but probably not much to worry about down here. The next three are a little closer. I know he outperformed everyone's expectations all year last year, into and through the playoffs, all the way to the championship. But I still can't get Scotty's team in my head into the fucking postseason. I just, and again, a couple injuries in the wrong place, and he's in trouble. In fact, he's already got Ryan Healy in his starting lineup, who is in a much better position than he was when I dropped him a few days ago. Now that he's in Seattle, but still, that's a guy that I should be starting. Zanino's a nice backup, a young guy. He's got a lot of pop, but a couple injuries in the wrong spots. Dozier's got to start fucking regressing. Shaw, I mean, I understand that after a full fucking year plus, you're supposed to believe it, but I just can't get on board with that guy. I like Bregman a lot. I like Benintendi a lot, and then obviously Judge.
Yeah.
What
can I just pause you right there,
yeah.
Because Judge is the player that this team hinges on. If Judge did make the adjustments that the pseudo Scott was talking about, Scotty's team is way better than what I'm looking at right now. If he just becomes Stanton of the previous years, pre 217, then he's not. Like, to me, I could not get around Judge. And we spent a lot of time talking about him last year. Who is the real Judge? Is he this generation's Big Hurt?
Right. He has his lineup. It looks like he's playing the 4 starter type situation here because he's got some of his starters on his bench at the moment. Mm-hmm. Either that or this is his way of fucking sticking it to the man and the new fucking non-rule that we can't enforce, which I wouldn't put it past him. But yes, go Pollock and Pham, all expected starters, and obviously that improves his lineup quite a bit. I'm just, like I said, I have a hard time going all in on his infield. I think he's got one of the better outfield situations with Judge, Benintendi, Pollock, and Pham. 5-point Pham come out of nowhere last year, and I'm all in on that guy now as well. So I like his team. I think they're good. He's just in a really good fucking division, and I think there's 2 teams better than his. So we'll see.
So, Joe, you've kind of got into Joe mode and been really quiet and kind of leaning back and not talking. But, boy, I'd really love to hear your take on this division.
It's freaking ridiculous. Going into this, I thought I was in a really good position. And now that I'm looking at everybody else's team, they're close to just as good as I am. I think Jack clearly is rebuilding and is probably not going to factor into it, but I think this is blah blah blah. I think Scotty is going for it. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to make the same mistake I did last year and fall asleep on Mikey. I see what you're saying about Aaron Judge. I'm not sold on him yet. I mean, obviously he's going to be a great player, but is he going to be the greatest? I don't know. I think if he's ever going to have a good year, it's going to be this year because he's got some tremendous protection in that lineup. I mean, who do you pitch around? If I don't do it, then I think it's going to be Scotty, which would make Mikey either second or third then.
Yeah. So I didn't see Mikey last year. I don't see Mikey this year. And that means nothing, obviously, as we've seen. I'm always wrong. Now, I will say that your starting team is the best in the division. If Rhys Hoskins is who we think Rhys Hoskins is,
And he is.
Mookie Betts comes back to be Mookie Betts with the power, which I think he's going to. Giancarlo Stanton, even at 3/4 of a season, is a monster in that fucking tiny little ballpark. Carlos Correa, in some cases, could actually be considered the number one pick in the redraft, yearly redraft leagues. Manny Machado in a contract year, playing third base and getting middle infield eligibility for you is ridiculous. Whit Merrifield, interesting guy, older guy. Can he repeat last year? I'm reading a lot that he can, so we'll see. Cody Bellinger, fucking awesome. Contreras, kind of okay, and your DH and Cespedes. But if you look at your bench leaves me wanting. Whereas if I look at omission commission, he's got just a weird team. And it's funny. Jack and I used to talk about your teams, Joe, when you were in the World Series year after year, and we couldn't see it. Like there's a blind spot that I have that for whatever reason, a player gets in my mind and I just can't see, no matter how many stats I look at. And it hasn't helped me. But he's got, Bregman. Does Bregman step up or step back? Is Travis Shaw really good or not? Brian Dozier is pretty damn good. Ryan Healy, I don't know. Mike Zunino, I don't know. Rafael Devers, maybe he takes a step forward, maybe not. I just, it's really interesting. And then his minors, like I think you're right, Jack. AJ Pollock, Tommy Pham are probably starters for him. He's got Scope. He's got Anthony Rendon. He's got I don't know that Chance Sisco is a good backup, but Nomar Mazara is, and he's pretty consistent. So if you don't have a lot of injuries, Joe, I don't see how he steps in front of you. If you have a few injuries, I think you're exposed. And that could, if you just lose 2 games in your division, 2 games could mean everything. I still think it's Joe that comes out of here on top.
I agree. But I actually have Mikey challenging him, in my opinion, more so than Scott. And honestly, the reason, and it just has to do with knowing Mike and the situation. Mike went through the season last year not expecting to do well, and then snuck in and got hot and won.
Right.
So now he's got it. It's like a shark with blood. He's got that fucking taste. He went out first of all and made his team better. He wasn't the best team last year. He won the championship, but he did make it better. He got Blackman, like I said.
Yep.
Cano again, not a young guy, but a fucking solid fucking middle infielder. Even Cabrera at DH, that guy could easily fucking get a little what are the fountain of youth there.
Yep. He's got Cargo back in Colorado.
Could on his bench. Yep. Could come up. Kane, I expect Kane to improve in Milwaukee as well. Who knows how much? Nelson Cruz is still on his fucking team. So, and Mike is, now that he's tasted it, assuming that he gets off well, which I expect him to. When he does have those bumps and bruises along the way, he is going to make the moves. He's going to move quick. He's going to make those trades where Scott isn't, and he proved it last year. Now, again, he made it to the championship, so it almost worked for him. But I expect so. So the difference, in my opinion, between Scott and Mike is in the owner, not the team, and that's why I picked Mike to finish second. I do think as well, Joe. I think Joe's team gets better. I think Bellinger and Hoskins, both of them are for real. We were talking about Hoskins earlier, me and Joe, and it's the other stuff, the off the field stuff that I've been paying a lot of attention to, and I fucking love this kid. So obviously you team that up with Machado, Correa, Betts, Stanton, all fucking absolute studs. Contreras, in my opinion, one of the top catchers in the league when we're done this year. In fact, he's my catcher choice for the year. I think he's going to move up very strongly in a lot of the lists this year. So I do expect Joe to win the division. I think Mike's going to come in second. It'll be close. Scotty might end up squeezing up there. I don't think either of them is going to the playoffs, though.
Oh,
so my so we'd established Tim.
Wow.
Chris and Joe, I think unanimously here today. See what happens when Greg's not around.
I'd like to thank you both and myself for that kiss of death. And when Jack walks off with the division crown at the end of the year.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. But I'm going with the Dreamers, the wild card spot. I think they're again with the staff pick they got, improvement on a couple of guys. They're my call for the fourth playoff.
That's a hell of a breakdown, man. And thank you for putting the work in that you did. It'd be interesting to see what Balked Nation thinks. I think your analysis is solid. I do think that Chris, in my opinion, actually is the surprise team. And if anyone is going to fucking take the champion from what I think preseason should be mine, it's going to be that motherfucker. And it's probably going to be Chavis that hits the goddamn home run that puts him over. So, Chris, fuck you. And I like your team. You're definitely building it up right. So,
do you guys think that the divisions, now that they're changed, are going to have anything to say about who trades with who and how much trading gets done this year? In other words, we've got 3 teams in the Griffey division that were all active traders at some point last year. Do you think being in the same division is going to prevent some trading?
Yeah, it could. Scotty, it could. It could. It's not going to affect me because I'm not going to be in the fucking race, but I could definitely see the 3 of you taking that into account. Yes, I could definitely see, the same situation between LJ and Chris and Tim and Greg as well. I don't see any of them wanting to help the other one in any way, shape, or form. If there is an interdivision trade, it's going to be carefully fucking be taken apart.
We all have favorite trading partners, and Tim and I trade pretty frequently. You and I almost never trade. In fact, I sent Tim a text wondering whether there was something wrong with me that I couldn't pull a trigger on a trade with Jack.
That was great. And you ended up pulling the trade off, by the way.
Some people,
and I regret it.
Some people, I was going to say some people would say that's a good trait, not a bad one.
I would fucking say that. I would say that loudly.
And I bet it would boomerang right back to you.
It's going to be interesting. When we first thought of this division mix up, I think Tim, you came up with it. I wasn't in love with it, but now, again, knowing at the beginning of the season that again, in my opinion, one of the guaranteed playoff teams is not one of the top 4 teams. You might disagree if you think Chris is that good. I just don't have him in the top 4 still. So, but I think it definitely puts an interesting spin on it. And, all of a sudden, Chris, LJ, and Greg, who, may have had no fucking shot in another situation, know that they are fighting for the division. There's a playoff spot there. Somebody's getting that motherfucker. So,
well, boys, so there you have it. We've figured out this season. It's even crazy that we'd even think about playing it now that we have it all figured out. So, yeah.
We'll send the trophy to Tim, and we'll all come back for the draft.
I have moved all my chips in. I am walking in. I mean, my lineup is a set it and forget it lineup, which is when I had my runs years ago in the other league. That's what it was, a set it and forget it lineup. You ride it out and you go with it. So hopefully the dice don't bounce as crazy as they did last year for me. I'm in the middle of the pack or in the top half of the pack. Make it happen. I want to win this year. There's no doubt I want to win this year. To go through that prospects episode and fucking listen to everybody talk about all these prospects that I either had or wanted to have was painful. So now's my time, boys. Now's my time.
I think some of us will try and say something about that, but we'll see.
Anything can happen. We proved it last year. Again, Tim wasn't quite as highly touted last year as this year, but it was fucking close. And like I said, I think I was the only team in the division I was in that wasn't chosen for the playoffs. And At one point, I won 11 straight last year. I fucking won the most games in a row or tied in the history of this fucking league. I finished with a 29 uh, um, power poll, with again top tied for the top ever in the history of this league. And a year later, my fucking best player is Buster Posey. So, you know,
You're welcome.
shit can change quick. is what I'm saying, folks.
Yeah, that was a tough ending to a year that, I think was pretty amazing for you. You did get some Christmas gift games. We did set that up for sure. Okay, so I have two bold predictions that I want to make. Gregory Polanco and Byron Buxton will combine for at least 50 home runs and 75 stolen bases and outperform Bryce Harper in a contract year. I'm putting that out there. Gregory Polanco and Byron Buxton combined 50 home runs and 75 stolen bases. Hear me now.
I'm going to take it a step further. And in what could be considered very realistic, Gregory Polanco gets traded halfway through the season to the Minnesota Twins. And with Buxton on first base, hits a double into the gap that scores Buxton to give St. Locash the fantasy championship over 47, right?
Oh my God.
Woo!
My big call this year, who I really like this year? He took a big fucking leap last year, and I like him a lot this year, is Scope. He's a guy that I almost had the balls to take. I took in all the free ESPN leagues last year and tried to make a couple of moves that guy made fucking some big leaps last year, and he did it quietly. I think he becomes an elite middle infielder this year. I like him a lot.
I like that. That's awesome.
Go.
I got nothing.
Yeah, we figured.
Yeah.
My other bold prediction.
Is that Joe fucking?
I predict I'll be dropping one of my two pitching staffs before the year is over.
No, listen, I love you guys. I'm looking forward to this season. I really am. I'm looking forward to this podcast season. Thank you for putting the time and effort in. I know it's late for you guys. But this was fun. I'm smiling ear to ear. I really appreciate it. And I will work hard to get this out on our Thursday routine. And I hope you guys have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.
It's already been a good day because we're one up on Greg now.
What were you watching that you just reacted to?
Oh, they're showing highlights of the Duke Kansas game down in the corner on the.
Joe, how could you react when
He's-
you know they
He's
won?
he's rewatching his team underachieve and
Right, exactly. Like
and yelling at the losing team for losing